Oh yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it is currently Sunday, December 11th, 2011, and this is Day 9 Daily number 385, where we learn to be a better gamer. Today we're going to look at none other than the wonderful, wubulous, brand new member of Team Liquid, LiquidZenio! And hence I wore my Team Liquid shirt. Yeah, stare at my breasts. Look at this elegant design, not just the succulent logo in the middle, but the amazing typeface selection. It's really hard to learn to point things when you're seeing everything in exact reverse on your webcam. But even the browns goes well with most pairs of pants. No matter what pair of pants you wear, Team Liquid can satisfy your needs. Because I see people already asking in the chat, TeamLiquid.net, you go to their store and you buy it. You should help support TeamLiquid.net because not only are they the most amazing and wonderful community site of all time, but also it lets you support them for free. And they gave me these replays today. I love Team Liquid. They're so great. Oh, also buy my shirts as well. I'm pretty bad at self-promotion. There we go. Yeah, help buy my shirts too. Woo! Yeah! Jinx.com. You can go to the store. All right, let's talk about the topic for the day. So the topic for today's daily, and of course the next 3 dailies, will be all about LiquidZenio, as Team Liquid was kind enough to provide me with a replay pack of his amazing Zerg stylum. So, I want to talk a little bit about the way Zerg feels, especially in Zerg versus Terran. There are so many threats that can be hurled against a Zerg player early on, that often a Zerg player can feel sort of ugh and uncomfortable. What's the correct path to go down? It feels no matter what path you choose, there has to be some huge change depending on what he's doing. And sometimes you don't even know what he's doing. It feels like there's no real option to choose from. With a Terran player, you can say something like, I'm going to do this opening, I'm going to expand it this time, and I'm going to attack it this time. And you just have that straight seam-lined process. For Zerg, it doesn't feel quite so similar to that. However, the important thing to note is that Zerg has this amazing flexibility that they have with the huge amount of larvae that they get. And as a matter of fact, you shouldn't think of it as, oh my god, poor me as a Zerg, I can't go down my one path. You should think of it as how great it is that I can still have some incredible flexibility and get back on track and still be in a really, really good position. So what we're going to do is kind of a weird examination of 2 games that LiquidZenio played. He played it against the same Terran player. In one of the games, the first game that we're going to watch, no aggression happened early on from Terran. In the second game, huge aggression happened early on. In both games, Zenio ended up back at kind of the same spot. But in the first game, it was a straight path to there, no interruptions. In the second game, it was this weird, wiggly, roundabout route. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to watch the first half of each game to start out and look at how he ended up setting himself up. And then we're going to look at the second half of each game, completely disjointed from the first half, to see what went on after that. Because the most important thing is not to become overly obsessed with the early game. Often what can happen is you have a successful early game. Everything works out great in the early game. But it was your late game decisions that were wrong. So we want to just examine the early game in a vacuum, then examine the late game in a vacuum. Yes! And I think that's it. Also, it's finals week. That was the other thing I forgot to say. This is now finals week pretty much all over America. For any of you who are watching the daily instead of studying at the finals, don't worry, you needed a break. You've been working really, really hard, and I'm worried about you. But I know you're going to do amazingly. For any of you who watch us on the archives, you're going to kick ass. Yeah, conquer finals week. And when finals are done, only do StarCraft. Yeah. So in the bottom corner, we have LiquidZenio. There he is in the south position. In the right position, we have some fucking guy. I have no idea who he is. That is not your usual romantic alphabet. I have no clue at all. But this is just a very strong Terran player. Now, again, we're going to look largely at the early game at this point. With the sound on. Okay, good. Excellent. We're going to look largely at the early game before we end up going to the break. And we're actually going to put some numbers onto this. In general, when I end up talking about strategy, the concept to me is the most important thing, right? Saying something like, I want to wind up with blah. Or he did this, how can I get back to my goal, right? I like speaking in that high-level abstract. We're actually going to put some numbers on here today. So I am actually going to open up zenio.txt, a blank notepad, hey guys, and this will help us out quite a bit. So let's first examine some of the very early game. And we're going to watch this to a point where everything seems pretty much stabilized. We're going to spoil a little bit of what our Terran opponent is going to do. He's going to be opening up with the usual Reactor Hellion style, but he's going to be expanding twice and then going into ultra passivity. Now, you heard me say that Zenio really does not get messed with. It's important that you don't view little pokes and prods as being messed with. And we're actually going to see this explicitly in whether he chooses to make drones or whether he chooses to make zerglings. Here comes the drone. Boom! Expanding on 15. Nothing out of the ordinary right now. Zenio sees a gas geyser going down. Expected. Has not really scouted too much. But already we're seeing him make extra drones due to the distances on the map. Let's actually hop into the Zenio cam. Even gets his gas geyser up first. Here's something that is pretty common. I'm not going to overly obsess about this too much. All that's really noteworthy is that you really do want zergling speed pretty quick when you do this early expand. Don't want to overthink it too much. Now that we're started to get past the real ultra basics of the opening, like when our first gas goes down, when our pool goes down, when our hatch goes down, now that we're past that, now I actually am going to begin honing in on some of these ultra super specifics. It's things like, notice that his pool is finished, and what does he do? How does he spend his first set? Well, he only gets 4 zerglings right now. He's not going to go for 8. He hasn't actually seen much of anything. With this gas geyser going down, I talked about this a little bit in the Liquid Hero replays. When you see this gas geyser, or in general when people gain some bit of information, too often players will conclude what he's doing. You don't want to do that. You want to conclude what he can't be doing. Could he still be building an expansion command center? Absolutely. Could he still be building a whole bunch of barracks? Maybe. It's actually kind of hard to get a lot of barracks out with this kind of mineral interruption early on. He probably could. Could he still be going for Reactor Hellions? Could he still be going Banshees? He could be doing any number of things. We can't really cross anything off our list. Notice that difference. Too often people will see the gas and say, oh, I bet he's either going Banshee or Hellion. You can't really conclude that straight up right away. If, for instance, you see no gas geysers at all, you can say something like, he's not going for really fast Banshee. He's not going for really fast double Hellions. That is the important way to think. So right now, Zenio, it's actually really important that you know, Zenio can't conclude a damn thing. He can't cross a damn thing off his list. So why is this great for you? It means that you at home can literally do this exact build order and not strain and stress that much. You don't even have to say to yourself, ooh, this opening must only be good against Reactor Hellion, which we concluded because he had a fast gas. Hell no, man. Zenio is actually going to do this in a lot of his games. Wow, even building 2 extra zerglings. And Zenio is going to go ahead and be aggressive with this. Now, in general, to sort of simplify things, I like to do equivalences. I like to say something like, a strategist might say, you must now get 25 drones at each mineral location. So you sit there going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's hard. I like to say something like, stop building drones at 55 food. That's easier for me. I have one check that I need to do instead of all the counting that I need to do. An equivalent statement, an effectively equivalent statement is, oh, this is, my water is leaking. There's water that is just dumped all over my desk. Okay, so I want to go on with this replay. I really need to get a paper towel. Stay here. There's water all over my mouse pad. I was wondering why it was so wet. Okay. God, my pant leg is just covered in water. Shut the door. All right, shut the door, day 9. Quickly, day 9. All right, and while I clean up this moisture, I guess I'll just talk a little bit more about that. So, in the early game, Jesus, this is a lot of water. In the early game, you're trying to get away building, in general, as many drones as you can, right? We want to get to a point where we can get our layer, get our Zergling speed, get all sorts of various upgrades. And a lot of people know that they want to get away with building as many drones as they can. But I still want us to actually look through every single part. Oh, fuck. Where can I put this stupid thing of water? You know what? Boom. Problem solved. Leak away. Problem solved. This is one of the wonderful effects of doing an actual live show. If water spills everywhere, people actually just have to sit and wait, so that way you have a mouse surface. Whew! Alright. Let's come back to the game. We know Zenio wants to build as many drones as he possibly can. But let's go ahead and actually see that in action. First thing, right now, if you're watching a regular replay, you may have already zoomed past this. He got a larva inject instead of spending anything on, he got a creep tumor instead of a larva inject. So with his first 2 queens, when they pop out, boom, 1 larva inject. Second one immediately begins spreading creep. In the unit station, we do have 6 whole frickin' Zerglings. And right now, Zenio has not actually determined that much. He's seen a geyser, and that's it. So he can't cross anything off his list of possibilities for the opponent. See a good old set of Overlords come out. The Overlord timing, I actually am not going to strain and stress too much about. I could and would in my spare time, but damn it, this is a daily where I've already delayed time cleaning up a mess of water. This is what I actually want to focus on. We have 9 Zerglings out right now. That's quite a bit. We have 4 more going on. This ends up being kind of a pivotal part of this early game economy. When were these Zerglings made? Wow. These are some suspicions that we're ending up having as our Zerg player. Where right when we get past 28 food, let's look at what happens. Another queen, another set of Zerglings. Just 1 set of Zerglings. When does the next one get made? Again, notice I'm not asking when the drones are made, because I want to make it easy. I'm going to make as many drones as I can. All I'm asking is when are the Zerglings getting made? It looks like I end up making 1 set of Zergling every time one of these Overlords hatches. That's a pretty easy, clean way to state it. And now I see an expansion. Alright, let's start crossing stuff off. He cannot possibly be getting an expansion this quickly and be going for Cloaked Banshees. Whoo! Notice that this queen was already starting to prepare for the Cloaked Banshees. These Zerglings were already starting to prepare for some sort of Hellions. I was preparing for both as Zenio. I was just getting a little bit here and there, and thanks to that, 1 scouting Zergling, whoo, starting to cross stuff off the list. Excellent. And now we see the double Hellion, so now we can really start concluding away. And it looks like we're going about with this first set of larvae that just popped off. It looks like with our first larva that popped off, we ended up making mostly Zerglings. We had a small trickle of Lings coming in, but thanks to this ultra-fast Zergling speed, this is one of the reasons we get it, when these first Hellions end up arriving, we're going to be in more than good shape. Oh, wow, look at this. The Spine Crawler was more of a response than it was any sort of huge upfront investment. So for any of you who are just blindly building a Spine Crawler, wait until you actually see some Hellions. For any of you who are building a bunch of Zerglings early on, wait until you actually see some Hellions. And be aware that that time is right around when your first larva injects pop off. Holy crap, do we have some useful early game information. We start with our usual understanding, I want to build as many drones as possible. Height. I want to get Zergling speed, I want to get a layer, but these are all details. I want to get as many drones as possible because I love having economy. Drones. Drones. So, I'm going to do the following things. I'm always going to get my 3rd queen kind of quickly. I'm always going to be doing a fast creep tumor kind of quickly. Always. Right around the time my first set of larvae are going to pop off, I'm going to run in and see if I find any Hellions or if I find any expansions. If I do, I may as well make some extra Zerglings. All the rest are drones. That's a pretty simple statement that is actually really, really powerful for us. I'm going to do things like build a spine crawler. When are we putting guys back in gas? No time soon that I can tell. And we have our 2 queens triumphantly marching out, ready to wreck some faces. Now, there's this other queen that ends up popping out. I'm not actually going to be too worried about that. I don't actually want to talk too much about this extra queen. It's a pretty significant detail. But suffice to note that pretty much everything at this point in time is drones. My gut instinct is actually not to build this queen. I actually don't like building this queen as much. But either way, we're essentially building just drones. And right around, I don't know, maybe 40 food I think it was. Started 45 food, started plopping guys back into gas, getting ourselves up another gas geyser. And despite this seeming intensity at the early game of these Hellions here, just drones. When did all these Zerglings get made? We trickled them in at the start. We got 4, 6, and then 8. Nothing too extraordinary. When our first larva inject popped off, we got a lot more. And then we continued on as a normal fellow would. No strain, no stress, no nada. I don't know, gee, around maybe 7 minutes, get another spine crawler? Seems totally reasonable. So now I want to talk, remove this production tab, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of not getting messed with at all. At this point in the game, nothing has really thrown us off course. We haven't lost a lot of drones, we haven't lost a lot of Zerglings. In the unit loss tab, we have lost 2 Zerglings. And those were the 2 by the center watchtower. Super normal, super incredibly small amount of actual interaction between us. And, in particular, what's the big thing that we've seen, ladies and gentlemen? It is the expansion. Expansions are always the big thing. Always. I don't care if you think that the Banshee is more important than the expansion, you are wrong. Expansions are the biggest things for all strategies at all points in time. Whomp. Flat. Cool. Now, I've gone to a little bit of specifics, but what I want to do is start going into some ultra timing specific stuff, right? So we have, it seems we have a spine crawler going up around 7 minutes. Here we go. When we haven't really been messed with. 7 minute, maybe spine number 2. I say maybe spine number 2 because sometimes our opponent will not do any sort of Hellion harass. So Hellion harass plus 7 minutes, maybe spine number 2. On some maps you only need 1 spine. Let me show you the really important things that I'm seeing here. We see 2 evolution chambers plopping down at 7 minutes, right? 7 minutes and 15 seconds, 2 evolution chambers. So I'm going to label this as game number 1 on Antigua Shipyard. Here are my notes, right? Here are some of the big things that have happened. I like this. Here's the big thing that I'm noting. And we're pretty much only making drones at this point in time. This is one of these magical moments where our Terran player might feel quite threatening to us. Our Terran player might appear to have a lot of stuff going on. We have some Zerglings hidden from Zenio, so that way he can do this sort of scout around. That's not really that much. As a matter of fact, wow, he only has 6 Marines and a tank, and here are 4 Hellions. That's right. At already the 8-minute mark, we can say something like, at 8 minutes, he hardly has anything. I want lots of these to be planted in your brain. I want lots of these. You don't have to write them down, I know. Oh, Husky StarCraft, stop messaging me for 4v4s. I know you need my incredible 4 expand and carrier rush builds. But I'm in a daily, Husky. What a jerk. Alright, now that I've closed him out, I know a lot of you don't necessarily like taking lots of notes. You like just playing and thinking about things and planning things in your brain, and that's great. Make sure that you have a lot of these in your head. Wow, when does he have nothing? At 8 minutes, because when you're playing, I never want you to have fear dictate when you should be building units. He actually waited all the way until 60 food to start building units. Holy crap, 60 food to start building a lot of lings. Holy crap, 60 food to start building a lot of lings. Obviously getting this +1/+1, because why the hell else would we get 2 evolution chambers? I don't need to take note of that. That's sort of an automatic, obvious kind of thing. But now still making drones. Still making drones. Now when we say wait until 60 food to start making zerglings, that actually translated to about 50 drones. We have 42, and we have some more in production. We're actually doing quite well in this particular front. But wow, look at that. 60 food to start building a lot of lings, and it was actually around a lings. And then back to drones. Actually, I should probably make it part of that. Round a lings, and then back to drones. And then around 65 food. Layer. 65 food. Baneling nest. Sweet. And more and more and more drones. Oh, hell, you know what? I may as well say 65 food extractors. Now, I want to note one thing note-taking wise. All these things happened at 65 food. So I want you to take your notes, or even in your head, I want you to start grouping things. I'm a big believer in this. We managed to take a whole bunch of little things and boom, clump them into one. When my food starts getting to 65, or I even generally say things like close to 70, that's when I do all these sorts of big groupings. And look at us absolutely crushing our opponent outside the front. There were only those 4 guys. Now, I will keep this production tab open. It looked like after 70 food, another round of lings. Another hatchery. So yes, we're getting 70 food. 3rd hatch, round of lings. And a 3rd hatch. We're going to end up wrapping up our early game discussion in a moment, but look at how frickin' many drones he's making. Notice around 80 food, some banelings. These are all approximations. Some banelings. I'm not even going to get that much more specific. Just some banelings. Is he going to be making a 4th hatch? Ooh, burrow. I kind of like this. When does he actually go into straight ling production? Hell, it looks like maybe every 10 food. 90 food. Some zerglings. He's not really been messed with, and most significantly of all, I want you to perceive that he hasn't really even scouted. For the most part, all he's really seen are just those Hellions and the expansion, and he's seen a tank. Let's go back and do some counting, right? Shall we? Let's count some things up. If we go to the just entire view of things, Terran is preparing for a whole bunch of Mutalisks. It looks like he has 3 tanks. He has a pretty decent number of Marines. What are his upgrades like on those Marines? Well, actually, they're quite behind. He actually doesn't even have stim or combat shield. He has taken a 3rd expansion, but we're also noticing that it's pretty fresh. We're seeing some of these patches have hardly been mined. One of these patches has been mined a lot, but that's because a mule's been mining it, and mules are, as everyone knows, super mega ridiculously imbalanced. But I want you to just now state something like at 10 minutes, really didn't have that much stuff. 3 tanks plus maybe 15 Marines. And now we're going to zoom through the final stages of the early game. Just noting things like, yeah, you know, continuing to get the upgrades, getting the obvious upgrades, getting the Spire as he can afford it. There's no real rushing for various things. Getting a 4th expansion up there at some point. And things are looking pretty straightforward. Now, we're going to go into a brief break. What have we seen in this first game thus far? We've seen that in terms of the early game, Zenio is not getting a ton of information. He doesn't have that much to work with. He has some basic preparations, like getting an extra queen for anti-air, getting a couple of extra zerglings after he sees the Hellions. The biggest preparation is actually just getting the fast zergling speed. But other than that, it's pretty much been drone, 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 drone. Getting some Evo chambers up, drone, 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 drone. Building a few zerglings, drone, drone, drone. Pretty straightforward. Now what we have seen is how a strong Zerg will open against a very passive Terran player and be safe and be in a good position. Part number 2, we're going to see how Zenio deals with a really aggressive opening, and then we're going to do a compare and contrast between this game and the last game. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere. The ultra important compare and contrast is coming up right after this.